I'm David Hensley, CEO, Idaho Realtors. Joining me today for the next installment of Connected Conversations is 2026 IR President Michelle Bailey. Welcome, Madam President.
Thank you.
So before we get into today's topic, it's July, half the year's gone. What are some of the highlights from the first part of the year?
6 months goes by fast, huh? Some of the highlights really are the open houses that we've done. We've been to 2 different locations throughout the state, and being able to connect with members has been awesome and hear some of their challenges and what's working well. And then obviously Capitol Day at the Hill. We had historic numbers that attended, so that was pretty cool. And just being able to connect with members there. And then of course we just got back from DC, and DC is always fun. Yeah,
what about DC did you enjoy?
Oh gosh, it's always fun to learn more about what's happening on the advocacy side. I'm not an expert by any means, but I always enjoy learning and seeing what other people have been working on and having it come together. And then of course, I'm pretty heavily involved in the MLS side, so being able to participate in some of those meetings and being able to share what has been in the works behind the scenes has been pretty cool.
So speaking of DC and MLS, here you were bestowed a pretty prestigious appointment by NAR. You were named the 2027 NAR Liaison for MLS Data and Management.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
It sounds really grown up.
Well, beyond that, yes, beyond the professional nature of that, you were one of 15 people nationally selected to help the 2027 leadership team on a pretty important issue. You talk about all the uncertainty around MLSs and the future of MLSs. For you to be at the forefront of that is tremendous, not only for Idaho, but for the nation. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved. Your time on the MLS committee for NAR, I think, has paid dividends. And you have just proven yourself to be one of those individuals who gets the issue and I think gets the members. And so you representing the members in that regard as we move forward is going to be tremendous. And they have a great advocate in you at the national level. So congratulations. That's wonderful news for you and for Idaho. So what are you looking forward to in the second half of the year?
I'm looking forward to visiting the remaining 2 districts and hearing from the members there. And then we have convention in Sun Valley, and I'm really looking forward to that because we have a lot of jam-packed good information, education, networking, and just in true form, some fun stuff.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So one of your priorities this year was to increase outreach to members. And we've started this Connected Conversations video series, and we've talked about a bunch of things. And for the next couple of months, we're going to focus on the characteristics that will make realtors and realtor leaders better based on the Wizard of Oz and the 3 main characters of that story. So as we get into these videos, we're going to be talking about brains or emotional intelligence. We're going to be talking about heart or empathy, like the Tin Man, and then we're going to get to courage and how do you have those tough conversations and modeled after sort of the principles of the Cowardly Lion. And as we do that, and as we talk about these videos, what's your goal? What do you hope to achieve?
Well, honestly, and hence the green pen, if you can see that at all, but it's not so much the Wizard of Oz. I think things kind of just came together organically as I was trying to figure out my focus for the year and what I wanted to accomplish. And green being the color that I love, and I'm from the West District in Idaho. And so Nick, our behind the scenes guy, kind of jokingly said, "Oh, you're the Wicked Witch of the West." And after a good little laugh, I was like, actually, that's true. Not the Wicked Witch part, but the Wizard of Oz and the lessons that can come from that storyline and the theme. And I think it's so much fun to have a theme and to bring fun with topics that can be heavy, but really demonstrate everything that we do as an association and as realtors.
Yeah, when you think about Dorothy's journey through the land of Oz and and all of that, what does it really mean to you? What does it mean to you as a leader and as a realtor?
Really, it's just a reminder of the three things that we focus on, which is heart, brains, and courage. And the journey that we all are on throughout our careers and life. And really, sometimes we try to keep them so separate, but they are interwoven with the relationships that we build. And hopefully we are learning to be better humans and ultimately better realtors, which then help our clients.
Yeah. So those characters in The Wizard of Oz are so memorable, and the characteristics that they display throughout the story really resonated with you. And I think in choosing that for your theme, you were hoping it'd resonate with members.
Yeah.
And so for this connected conversation, we're going to focus on the first character Dorothy meets along the way, the Scarecrow. And of course, the characteristic behind that characteristic, brains. But you've taken that sort of a step further, and you've really focused on emotional intelligence and what that represents, not only in the character, but for you as a leader and for realtors in general. So talk about, what does emotional intelligence mean to you?
I think emotional intelligence is important because you can have intelligence, but that doesn't mean you can interact well with people. It doesn't mean that you can walk in and read a room and understand when you need to not be talking and when instead you should be listening as a leader. And I think that emotional intelligence is I just don't think it's given enough credit and acknowledgement, because it really is, how do we walk into a room and how do others interpret what it is that we are doing or saying. And so the emotional intelligence part of that is that we understand how that's being perceived.
Yeah, that's a great explanation of it, and that understanding and how that translates in the relationship, not only with people you're serving, but then the people that you're working with on the other side of the table as well.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, why do you think it's important to realtors? Why do you think emotional intelligence is important to realtors?
Well, I mean, let's be real for a moment and just acknowledge that realtors are known for having a tad bit of ego, right? And when we have a tad bit of ego, then we tend to think we're the only ones in the room. And I think the emotional intelligence piece of that comes with an understanding that we aren't the only ones in the room, and we are having discussions. Now, I'm somewhat joking about that because we are known for having somewhat of an ego, but there's also a lot of realtors that come to the table and they are there to help consumers and clients, and we work together to make that happen. But at the same token, it's how do we have conversations and how do we have respectful professional debate and still be able to leave the room as friends, right? How do we have conversations without us having to prove the knowledge we bring to the table or prove that we are even worthy enough to be at the table, when really it's just about the conversation and making things better?
Yeah. When you're representing a client, I know that client's hoping that their realtor is representing them as zealously as possible, looking out for their best interests and trying to do right by them. But there's another party involved in that, and oftentimes there's another realtor involved in that. And going back to what you said about understanding not only the room, but the people in the room. It doesn't matter how smart you are, but if you can't communicate or you can't understand the people across the table, you're not going to have a successful outcome.
Yeah.
And so give me an example throughout your time as a realtor where you've seen a really heightened level of emotional intelligence at work.
Gosh, there are a couple of cases I can think of with a lack of emotional intelligence. Okay. And what I mean by that is sometimes some people just trigger us. We allow ourselves to get triggered in a way that maybe we respond at a heightened level. Like I can think of a couple of cases where I did not demonstrate emotional intelligence myself, and I allowed whatever was happening to to elevate me, right, and respond in probably not my best light. And that does not feel good probably for anyone involved, including myself as a person demonstrating that lack of emotional intelligence. And sometimes people just have a bad day. And if you have that, if you allow for that grace, then I think you can get to the other side a lot better.
Yeah, alternatively, if you think about the Scarecrow as a character throughout the movie, it seemed that he was very contemplative.
Yeah.
And he didn't necessarily have that sort of knee-jerk reaction. So it almost seems that emotional intelligence starts with maybe taking that deep breath.
Yeah.
Maybe gaining that understanding through giving yourself the flexibility and latitude to have that moment, right? Where you're seeking first to understand and second then to respond. And it seems to me that that's one benefit I think realtors can really take from this portion of your program and your initiative this year, is that emotional intelligence really starts with that deep breath. You know, what's been interesting to see over the course of this year is as we go on the road, and we talk to members through your open house initiative, and we hear from members, and sometimes they're upset. Sometimes they are critical. And what I have appreciated is that in those moments, you've displayed a high level of emotional intelligence in that your first reaction was to better understand where they're coming from or what they're saying. You empathized with them in that moment, and then you were able to respond after you read the room.
Yeah.
Right? After you read the people in the room and the room itself. And you've done that multiple times, and I think it's shown well for yourself and for Idaho Realtors. And it's been a great example to others, including myself, of what emotional intelligence looks like when it's most needed and necessary.
Yeah,
and
I appreciate
conflicts, you know, and those, not necessarily even conflicts, but in those tense moments,
Yeah.
right? Where we have to remind ourselves that that's a characteristic or a skill that with time and practice we can improve, and eventually through application we get better.
I think that's important for people to understand. I mean, I joke about the ginger snap, but I was actually very proud of the ginger snap, you know, back in the day. I mean, I was witty with my comebacks, and they were not, sometimes they would cut like a knife,
Yeah.
you know, and, but that didn't really help, or the other person wasn't left feeling probably good about how that went. And so over time, I've worked on that, and I've worked on breathing and how to respond, and work on asking better questions to understand their point of view and realize it's not about me, right?
Yeah, that asking questions and actively listening is a critical component of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Without that, I don't think you can truly be in the moment and having those conversations with either your client or the people across the table from you. You know, as we continue this journey throughout the Wizard of Oz and leadership and realtors, you know, we're focusing on emotional intelligence, but we're going to talk about empathy or heart. We're going to talk about courage. We're going to talk about how to have those tough conversations in a courageous and respectful manner. What do you hope members get out of these 3 videos on those characteristics? And what do you hope that resonates with them?
I think ultimately I hope that they understand the journey that they're on, how it impacts others, that no matter where they are, they can always be better and they can always improve upon things. And that when we work together, we can really accomplish so much more than doing things one-on-one. And the only way we can really work together effectively is to be able to have conversations and be able to bring different points of view and be able to actually articulate what it is that we're feeling or thinking, and then be open to the idea that your idea may not be the only one that is the right one.
Yeah. So whether you're a new agent or the most seasoned broker in Idaho, do you think there's value for them in embracing the idea of emotional intelligence for their business?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and why?
100%. I mean, our clients ultimately receive the best service when we are demonstrating emotional intelligence. I mean, we are working for them to help them with their dream of home ownership or in building wealth. And that comes in understanding what it is that they're looking to accomplish. And we can't really understand what they're trying to accomplish unless we're asking questions to understand that at a high level.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that buying a home is an emotional experience?
A little bit.
And so, not as a realtor, not as an agent, but having purchased a home, I remember how tense some of those times were and some of those conversations. And it seems to me that emotional intelligence is something that costs you nothing, but can be a huge reward in the course of serving that person who's really trying to navigate probably the largest financial transaction of their life.
Absolutely. And because it's emotional, when we are emotional, we don't always think clearly. And it's like we forget all logic to some degree. And so I think that's why it's even more important to be the advocate for your client. But you can be the best advocate for your client or the members in general when you are displaying and learning more about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.